In 7th century Mecca, faith and fortune stood side by side. Then one proclamation disrupted them both. What followed was not simple opposition, it was a confrontation that would reshape history. In the late 6th and early 7th centuries, Mecca was more than a trading city. It was the beating religious heart of Western Arabia. The Kaaba, centuries old, surrounded by idols of countless tribes, stood as a symbol of tradition, power, and balance. Every tribe saw its representation there. Every leader its legitimacy. The annual pilgrimage brought not only honor, but wealth. Markets flourished. Caravans poured in. The leading Quraysh's clan guarded the sanctuary and with it, their position, their influence, their future. This system worked. It was stable, it was profitable, and it was untouchable. Until at a crucial moment in history a man arose with a message that would change everything. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, brought no political revolution, no army, no economic reform. He brought words. But those words carried the power to shake an entire order. His call to the worship of one God was no minor religious correction. It was a head-on clash with tradition, power, and economic interests. It was as if someone discovered a drug today that cures every disease. Hospitals, pharmaceutical empires, and multi-billion-dollar industries suddenly obsolete. Or as if cars ran on water tomorrow and the global oil industry became irrelevant overnight. What means liberation to some feels like an existential threat to others. And in Mecca, it was felt. For this was no simple sermon. This was the beginning of a rift that would run through families, commerce, and society. After years of secret preaching, a new moment had arrived. The hidden phase was coming to an end. The message would become public. The prophet knew that his call to worship one God was not merely a religious pronouncement, but a fundamental challenge to deeply rooted traditions, social structures, and existing power dynamics. Opposition was inevitable. Friendships would be strained, family ties would be tested, and ridicule or rejection loomed. Yet, he was not guided by fear. His determination was rooted in faith and obedience to the revelation entrusted to him. According to Islamic tradition, he was instructed to warn his closest relatives. This marked a decisive turning point. One day, he summoned his relatives to the hill of Safa, a place used in Arab tradition when something of great importance needed to be announced. He did not begin with a direct announcement of revelation or judgment. Instead, he addressed them based on trust and shared history. "You have known me all my life," he said. His relatives nodded. They had watched him grow up among them, had traded with him, traveled, and spoken with him in times of peace and tension. Whenever there was a dispute, they went to him, listened to his advice, and accepted it as true and honest. For merchants who set out on long and uncertain journeys across deserts and foreign lands, leaving their wealth behind was a risk in itself. Homes could be raided, trust could be broken. Even family and neighbors could not always guarantee safety. But there was one man in whose care their fears fell silent. Before departing for months at a time, they would place their most precious possessions in his hands: gold, goods, entrusted wealth, asking for no contract, no payment, no written guarantee. His character was their security. His integrity was their safeguard. He was known among them as El Amin, the trustworthy. Then he asked them, "Have I ever told you anything in all this time that later turned out to be untrue?" There was no hesitation in the crowd. The voices rang out in unison. "No, we know you as Al-Amin, Al-Sadiq, the trustworthy one, the truthful one." Then he asked them the question that would turn the meeting around. If I told you that behind this hill an army was standing ready to invade, would you believe me?" Their answer was unanimous. They would believe him. But he did not warn them of a visible army or an approaching earthly enemy. He warned them of a coming divine reckoning. He said, "I have been sent to you as a prophet by Allah, the Exalted, to warn you." He called them to turn away from idolatry, from the idols they had fashioned with their own hands, and to turn instead to the pure worship of the one God. His call was not a call to worldly power, but to inner surrender, not a threat of swords, but a reminder of the hereafter, a voice calling to truth. According to tradition, his uncle Abu Lahab stood up and openly rejected him, saying,
"Have you gathered us here for this? May you perish."
This marked the beginning of open opposition, even within his own family. The conflict was not about doubting his honesty, which had, after all, been confirmed, but about the far-reaching consequences of his message for the religious and social order of Mecca. But it didn't stop there. A revelation was soon sent down that directly addressed this confrontation. An entire surah was dedicated to this event, lasting testimony in the revelation itself. In chapter 111 from the Holy Quran, in Surah Al-Masad, it is stated, "In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, may the hands of Abu Lahab perish, and he himself perish. Neither his wealth nor worldly gains will benefit him. He will burn in a flaming fire, and so will his wife, the carrier of thorny kindling. Around her neck will be a rope of palm fiber." With this revelation, the conflict became no longer just a family dispute or a local argument. It became a principled and spiritual confrontation enshrined in the sacred text. The dispute wasn't about doubts about his honesty, which had been confirmed, but about the far-reaching consequences of his message for the religious and social order of Mecca. This moment marked the definitive transition from silent proclamation to open confrontation, a decisive turning point in history. After the first public appeal on the hill of Safa, at which his uncle Abu Lahab publicly rejected him, the phase of open opposition began. Yet, the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not give up. The story is far from over. The struggle continues.